obviously, I feel it's a terrible situation if a third of young women feel that they can't walk to and from school or go on public transport without being, you know, the subject of unwelcome attention. But looking at what this government committee has proposed, they say they want to make the streets a safer place for young women. Well, I say we don't have to look very far as to why our streets might feel a little bit more frightening for young women. That's because the councils have cut back on street lighting all over the country. Street lights go off earlier now. And also the number of policemen actually walking on the beat or even patrolling the streets in police cars has gone right down because the government has cut funding to the police. So those are two things that make the streets safer for everyone. We could all sit here and say, well, let's change school uniform, let's have everyone in trousers, and quite a lot of schools are saying that. But then isn't that saying girls can't look after themselves? Should young women be able to wear what they want? Every time I've ever written anything about women's clothing, I've had a very aggressive, you know, emails and responses from young women who say we've got to be free to wear exactly what we like, and it's, you know, our right.
Do you think that sometimes the focus is centred around how do we keep young girls safe and how do we give them the self-defence they need and the tools they need? And while I feel that that is all valid and that does need to happen, why aren't we ever concentrating on how do we educate our young boys to turn into men who don't, you know, who feel that they don't have to look at women in a certain way or approach women in a certain way? Why aren't we tackling both genders as if it is all solely on the girls?
I come from a culture where, you know, it's all about women dressing modestly. It's always about women, you know, it's all the honour is on the woman. If you wore like, you know, a revealing dress and you got sexually harassed, in my community it would be said, well, it's your fault because you wore the wrong clothes. And if we want to live in a country like Saudi Arabia, if we want to live in that kind of culture, we've got to start waking up.
Yeah.
Because I've always campaigned for the fact that actually I've got a son and I am educating my son about what it means to respect people. It comes from parenting, and you know we have to. Nobody ever in the culture that I was brought up, nobody ever said to the blokes, "Don't look at women like that. It makes them feel uncomfortable." You are not, just because she's wearing a tight dress does not mean you have to go and, like, you know, leer after her or she's up or she wants something.
Well, you know,
you're absolutely right.
I remember when I wore a school uniform and I was very well developed for a young girl, and I used to get a lot of attention and I genuinely felt intimidated by it and I hated it. And I didn't know how I could be assertive. I wasn't just one of those people that could naturally go, oh, you know, who are you looking at? Well, I would just take it. What do you think about the idea, and taking into consideration that we have to look at this for both genders, if there were some sort of classes at school where both boys and girls are there, so you're taught because the streets can be dangerous for boys as well in a different way, where they're taught how to defend themselves, you know, verbal assertiveness, physical if necessary. I mean, why can't we just roll that out in all schools?
But I think, Nadia, there are already lessons at school where young people are taught about relationships and respect. That is already happening.
It's that PHSE thing, isn't it?
Exactly. You could say, why are girls going to be offered self-defence lessons? Isn't that implying, yes, and not boys?
I think it should be boys and girls, because I think it's dangerous for a different way.
Wouldn't it be better to offer young people self-defence classes, because there are just as many young boys in gangs as there are young women feeling sexually harassed? So I think also we have to teach, we have to say, let's set up classes so boys and girls do things together instead of separately, because only by doing things together can you learn how to talk to each other normally.
Exactly. And actually, they've had some real success. Some of the universities in America have been running these empowerment self-defence, where they teach them strategies, verbal assertiveness, female self-defence, da-di-da. Now, they've logged the results over a year after the course's completion. 46% reduction in rape and 63% reduction in attempted sexual assault.
Because of this assertive classes.
Rather than they used to just give out pamphlets, but now they have actual classes.
The tools to the job. But again, sorry, I was going to say, but again, it does come from parenting your children and teaching them what respect is. You know, that's the basis.
But
not everyone does.
Underlying all of this is the normalisation of porn, where young boys are looking at porn on their phones and so on. And one of the recommendations from the committee is that train operators should block porn channels off the train Wi-Fi, and that looking at porn on public transport, on a bus or whatever, should be an offence. And I think I agree with that, funnily enough. I think there's nothing more creepy than you're on the train or on the bus and someone next to you is looking at something and you think, ugh, because although they are, you know, they're in their seat and you're in yours, they are kind of in close proximity.
Censorship, though. I mean, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
no, but it's good censorship.
Yeah, I know,
because
but
it's like being flashed at. It's like a modern-day flashing.
Yes.
You're on your way home from work or on your way home from school, and some perv is sat next to you, flashing some awful image.
I was sitting on the train
yesterday.
I was sitting on a train yesterday, and he got his laptop, and he was watching quite a really steamy love scene. So, you know, and I was just like, oh, it's a bit inappropriate, but I was kind of like going over watching it kind of thing. Oh, what's that he's watching? But it is, do you see what I mean? Like, where do you draw the line?
But it would be so easy to have X-rated content blocked from the underground. You know, they have a Wi-Fi system that is run through certain forums, and they could easily say no X-rated stuff should be looked at while you're sitting next to somebody.
What I find fascinating, I was reading an article a couple of days ago in which two young men asked girls before they had sex, they met, you know, they met at a party or pub or whatever, and then before they had actually had sex, they made the women video their consent. So before you kind of get down to it, you're giving your video consent that you're agreeing to it. And that just shows you how skew-whiff, you know, interaction between the sexes has become. That we don't trust each other.
Weird culture now.
Very, very complicated times. But just because it's complicated, we mustn't give up the thought that we could possibly do something and affect change.